welcome to Saturday Stamping with Honeybee Stamps. Welcome back to Hedgehog Hollow for our third and final part of 3 weeks, 3 ways with the Zen Ocean stamp. This week I'm going to show you how to make a monochromatic card. It's got a lot of 3D enamel accents to it as well. I wanted to make something a little bit different for this week, so I went with monochromatic, but not in black and white is quite traditional, but in different shades of blue. So we're going to do some watercolouring with standard watercolours, some metallic ones, and we're also going to be using some of our distress ink pads as well. Lots to show you, lots of techniques, so let's get started. Today we're going to be using the My Favourite Things After Midnight pad. This is a nice deep blue, so I'm looking forward to trying that. And I've grabbed a really inexpensive palette here, and I grabbed this because it has 3 different shades of blue in it. I also have a stack of distress oxides and regular distress inks just to the side. If we need another shade, then we can introduce those as well. I also have a craft mat so that we can use it as a palette, and if we decide to use them, then I can show you how to do that. Now the first thing I'm going to do, so I'm just going to move my water out of the way. I have my Rinse Well and my Collapsible Faber-Castell watercolour bin as well. I'm going to use some watercolour cardstock, and I will link everything up for you, of course, in the description and on the blog. And I'm going to use my Zen Ocean, and again we're going to do it just off the edge, and then we can cut it down later. So I'm going to go as close as I can to the edge here. And I'm going to pop a few magnets. Now I use foam underneath my piece here, which is why I stamp with the rubber side, even with photopolymers. I'll link up that video for you so that you can see that. This should be a little tag on your screen, and you can hop on over to that video as well. So I'm going to generously ink up my image, and I love the idea of doing a monochromatic card, but not necessarily with shades of black like we normally would. Because this is an ocean theme stamp, I wanted to do it in shades of blue, and I think this will come out really, really nicely. I'm going to ink it a couple of times so that we have a nice strong impression. And this is a hybrid ink, so I could choose to use alcohol markers, I could choose to use watercolour markers. Anything is going to work with this ink. It's not going to bleed, it's not going to react. And I'm just going to do this centre section again. How many times you ink it will depend really on personal preference, and it also depends on how strong you want your image. So I'm just going to press this area down. So there we go, we have our lovely inked image here. I'm now going to start watercolouring into this piece. I'll speed this up, I'll add some music so that it doesn't take quite as long, but I will let you know how long it actually took me once I have finished. Couple of quick things I wanted to show you here. So I've got a couple of different brushes. They are my fine liners and my goat's hair. I'll link those up in the description for you. Also want to mention that I'm using my Rinse Well. If you didn't see that in a previous video, amazing tool. You can get clean water out of it, and then it's got a little reservoir that you can just drain away in. It's my bestest tool. I'll link it underneath. It's really inexpensive for what it is and saves me so much time and effort. Also want to remind you that I use that dropper with the metallic watercolours, and you'll see in a minute I'll also pick out some distress inks on a craft mat. Now this actually took me about 15 minutes in real time, and you'll also see I dry it a few times when I want to add different colours and less water and things using my Ranger heated craft tool. I will link all of that, of course, in the description. So let's get painting. So it didn't take anywhere near as long as I think it looked, but I do love how it's come out. Let me lift it up so that you can see. And we're going to add some Glossy Accents details on there as well for you. So we'll get to those in a second. I did end up adding in some distress inks because I wanted a bit more lights and darks. So I used Mermaid Lagoon, Peacock Feathers, Salty Ocean and Blueprint Sketch. And I think they really highlighted some of those metallics. Plus, of course, by having those metallics in there, we do have a nice shimmer on there too. Now I have trimmed this down. I have half a piece of Neenah Solar White cut lengthways, which I'm going to fold in half to create my card base. And I'll firm that up with my bone folder. I have a piece of a Lawn Fawn blue cardstock. I'll link, of course, everything up for you as a matting layer. And then I'm going to put in the center this one here. Now, I use, rather than give you dimensions, I just use this. So I cut all my pieces to 5.5 by 4.25, and then each matting layer is this much less than the previous one, which is around about 1/4 inch. But for me, it just works out as a really nice even mat all the way around. And my matting is always the same. I never have to think about numbers. I just line it up with that edge, and I am done. So let's put our card together first of all. So I'm going to stick down our blue layer. And I love this Lawn Fawn cardstock. It's a nice thick cardstock and it comes in some stunning colours as well. So we can stick this down. And I always open up my cards to mat my layers. I find I get a much more precise matting and I'm much happier with the results doing it that way. I'm using the Tonic Funky Tape Runner because I love it. It's inexpensive and it's super strong and they seem to last forever as well. So I'm going to stick that onto there. Now I'm ready to do my sentiment. For that, I've chosen Seize the Day from the same Mermaid song stamp set that we used on the previous weeks. And again, I have another piece of Neenah Solar White. And I'm also going to stamp out using the After Midnight, the same as we use for the outline, so that it all ties together really nicely. I already have it here on an acrylic block, ready to go. And I'm just going to trim this out with my paper trimmer. I'll bring that back in again. I'm going to line this up, and once I have one straight side, then I can work my way around onto the others. And this paper trimmer also has some really great guides. I'll link this up. Lots of you asked about it in the last video, but these lines all in here, which are actually the guides for this rotary piece, are really great to line up for depending on how much of a border you want around something. Now to stick this on, I'm going to actually use some of the foam strips that we normally use for shaker cards. They've got a little bit more depth than a standard Mama foam, and I want this one to really have a little bit of standout. And I love how a monochromatic card doesn't have to be black and white like everyone always kind of assumes and thinks it's going to be. Now the final thing I want to do, just to add that little bit of wow factor, is add on some glossy accents. So I'm going to pick out a few areas here, like the starfish. Now these will take an hour or so to dry. I would suggest you keep it flat. Having been the person who stood my card up after putting glossy accents on to dry, and it's dripped, and then I've had, I think it was a cat at the time, and it looked like it was crying. It was really sad, so we don't want to be doing that. I'm also going to pick out this fish. This will dry clear. It will give it an enamel finish, as it kind of sounds. It will be clear, and you will see the colour through it, and it just gives it that nice raised tone. It's also fairly sturdy. You can put it through the mail. It's not going to flake or chip off. This also makes a really great adhesive for mixed media projects or something a little bit heavier, because it is just so strong. I'm also going to pick out this other fish up here. This is really going to give the card some extra interest, and on the pictures you can see there, you can see how that really picks out the few areas I've highlighted, and it just really finishes off the card. So I hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial. Thank you so much for stopping by and sticking with me through all of that colouring. I hope you will be wanting to give this a try. I've also linked up for you all the other weeks, the first week 1 and week 2 of our 3 weeks 3 ways. So I hope you are enjoying the Zen Ocean stamp, and I hope you like the versatility of it. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will see you again next Saturday for some more Saturday stamping, where we will have a new theme. Happy stamping, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!